Perspektif kita bersama Syed Faradino Omar.
Antara impian dengan realiti, antara keinginan dengan kenyataan.
Diletup payah, dikepak patah.
Perlu adanya aspirasi yang clear.
Tak mahu orang yang pandai tetapi emosinya tak stabil.
Bagaimana kita nak memperkasakan mereka kembali?
Jangan salahkan orang, salah diri sendiri.
Sabtu ini, jam 9 malam di Astro Awani, berita segenap dimensi.
Prof, before I went for the break, I cut you short just now. So, what is it that?
Yes, actually, Edmund had pointed out that ever since the election results of 2008, there has been a renewed interest in constitutional law. Indeed, because now we are facing federal-state relations. Previously, everything was under Barisan, almost everything, but now states are demanding their rights. So the federal aspects of the constitution have become very prominent. I think civil society demanding more rights. But what I wanted to point out is this, that from day one, constitutional issues were very important, but they were not being addressed. For example, the rights of the accused, the rights of the poor. Constitution is not only meant for the rich, it's meant for the poor as well. The rights of, let us say, remand prisoners, waiting for their day in court, and the day doesn't come, sometimes for 4 or 5 years. And yet the detention is lawful. So I think constitutional law has to be approached like this. Virtually every issue of politics, every issue of economics, every issue of social life has a constitutional dimension. It needs to be discovered.
And it needs to be understood first.
Yes.
There are always this fear that whenever Bar Council takes up a campaign, rightly or wrongly, that there would be certain perception that would have a certain bias against the ruling party, the federal ruling party, or that it would be pro-opposition. So how do you deal with this as you embark on this campaign where you want the support of all, regardless which side of political divide they are?
Yeah, well, this campaign, the Bar Council is always pro-justice, always pro-human rights, and always pro-constitution. We support, uphold the constitution fully. There's no question of us being trying to impart our own bias as lawyers. And for this campaign, we had made it a conscious effort just to tell you, simplify the constitution as it is. So there's no interpretation or very little interpretation on what some lawyers might see the constitution should be or ought to be. And the answer to your question really has been answered because the federal government has said they support this campaign. They have looked at this and they said, we will support you. The federal government, cabinet deputy minister came to launch it on the 13th of November. So I don't think there's any fear. No one has said that this is anti-government, pro-opposition, and everybody has supported it.
Prof, when we look at this effort, this campaign, how much more would the layperson be enlightened by a simplified understanding of the Constitution?
Well, certainly it will help a great deal. For example, how will a person know that he has a right under the Constitution unless he knows that there is a chapter on fundamental liberties? Of course, what the in-depth situation is, when does the right to consult and be defended by a lawyer begin? Is it immediately after arrest, 24 hours, 24 days? That's a matter for greater detail. But I think it would certainly help that the people should know that first of all there is a constitution that stands above everyone in power, that no matter how high and mighty you might be, that is the law for everyone. So we judge the government by the Constitution, and hopefully the government judges itself by the Constitution as well. I think that's very important.
Okay, when we talk about getting the general masses to understand what their rights are, what is provided for under the Constitution, don't you think there's already a very widespread understanding of basic fundamental liberties? I mean, if I go by what we see, especially of late, there are a lot of litigations whenever there's something that goes against what basic rights are, there's always either the lawyers have prodded them or they themselves have gone to the lawyers. So how much more awareness is there needed?
I don't think there's enough, because when you know about your rights, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go to court. Going to court is not a good indicator of people knowing their rights. We want the people to read the Constitution for themselves and then use the Constitution and the liberties given under the Constitution to deal with the authorities on a daily basis without needing to go to court. And I think a lot of people do not know that. So you look at the minority of people going to court, and you say that's a lot. But actually, there are many others who are still marginalized and oppressed and still do not know their rights.
I have two comments to make on that. First of all, most legal issues are actually administrative issues. They can be resolved in an administrative way. As Edmund said, you stand up for your right, talk to the administrator and say, no, that's what the Constitution says. Secondly, what I want to emphasize is this. I agree, lots of people know about their rights. What I feel is lots of people don't know about the rights of others. I think that's the tendency in most societies, certainly ours. I know my rights, I should also know the rights of others. I should know my duties. So I think that's where this campaign would hopefully also inform the people that, look, other sections of the population also have their rights along with your own rights.
What areas of the Constitution do you think that needs to be more emphasized? I mean, we understand that the fundamental liberties part have been extensively discussed. What are the aspects of the Constitution?
There's one booklet on, we have 9 booklets, 9 phases. So there's one booklet on the right, which includes citizenship and fundamental liberties. The first one was basically to say, the first booklet was basically to say that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. There's another one on the separation of powers. There's one on elections and the concept of democracy. There's one specifically on Parliament, the executive, the judiciary. There's one special one on Sabah and Sarawak. And there's one on federal and state relations. So these are the 9 themes which we think are extremely important for the people to know and which run through the whole the document in the Constitution. So if you go through these 9 themes during these 2 years and follow our campaign, you'll probably know 80% of the Constitution.
You have seen most of the...
Oh yes.
Do you think that should be ample to...
Well, I think it's a good beginning, but you see, knowledge of the Constitution, imparting knowledge is like a journey. It's not a destination, and I'm sure in the years to come they may want to add a booklet on, let us say, what we call the social contract, the very fine middle line of compassion and compromise, the middle path that our forefathers forged to keep this nation together. I'm sure a booklet on social contract would be very, very advisable.
But do you think when we talk about, I mean, if let's say social contract is taken as another aspect of the campaign, those are areas which could probably open a floodgate, where they would probably create a bigger problem of misinformation and misunderstanding and attempt to misinterpret to suit each other's so-called political interests and whatnot.
For us, I think we decided that issues like the social contract, issues whether Malaysia is Islamic or secular state, really are issues which have come to the fore because of certain cases.
Yes, that's right.
And words like the social contract and secular state, Islamic state, these are words which are not exactly found in the Constitution per se. So as I said just now, when you asked me about the question of the Bar Council, we didn't want to talk about it. We want to avoid it because we want the people to actually read it for themselves and not allow us to give an interpretation of what we think the social contract should be or what it is and what religion or whether we are a theocratic state or secular state. So these are things which let the people read. Let people read Article 4. Islam is the official religion of the Federation. Language. Let them read it for themselves. We will tell you what the Constitution says, but in a very layperson, simplified form. You then decide for yourself.
Okay, again, on that note, we'll have to take a short break again. Okay, please stay tuned and we'll be back in a bit.